Studying this quarter books of poetry. And our lesson today comes from Psalms 103. Psalm 103. So I'd like to take about 5 minutes just right off the bat. If you'll turn, if you got your book, you can see kind of what I did. I broke each one of these verses down. I wrote just what I thought maybe a one or two word type theme, or maybe there's a verse in there that reminds you of that. But I think what I'd like to do today is for us to go kind of verse by verse through this psalm. And if you've got, like I said, a pencil or pen handy, just read the verse, and then you've got just something that pops into your mind, kind of that first word, that first phrase, theme. As you read that, what pops into your mind? So if you'll take a few minutes and do that, some of these verses you might need to read one or two before you come up with the theme or title. But just take a few moments and do that. And then we will break this down and talk about it. I'll admit, poetry not really my strong suit. I remember when I first started college as a young freshman, when my advisor put me into a British literature class, and it was really more of a junior level class. And as I'm starting campus, I'm a little intimidated, so I go into one of my first classes, and it's a British lit, and the book's that big, and it's nothing but little short poems or Shakespeare stuff, really small. And what we did in that class, if anybody ever took that class, we just read those, and then we analyzed them, and we made comments. It required more critical thinking skills than I probably had developed at that time. So I did not do well in that class. One of the only C's I made in college. But I think maybe my brain has matured a little bit, and I'd like to retake that class. I think I would have done a lot better now. But then I did not do very well. So a little background. I didn't know this about Psalms. It's kind of an intimidating book if you look at it from first chapter to the end, because there's so much in it. But I was excited to get to study it. A lot of people divide it into 4 collections. I wasn't aware of that, but it's kind of, if you looked at it, they're kind of in equal chunks. First 40 chapters, basically, they're divided into about 30 to 40 chapters apiece for a collection. And the book said as they go through the top, the first collections, which will be the first and early chapters, they begin with more laments and petitions, asking God for things, and maybe telling them about the sins of the people and things like that. And as it goes down through the chapters, they become more about praise. And the title of our lesson is A Song of Praise. But that was interesting that as they go through further down in, they become much more praising towards God. This psalm we're going to talk about today is a psalm of David, like many of them are. And I've always found it interesting in these psalms, reading them, I think they help benefit my prayer life, because you can almost look at them as versions of prayers as well. I think they really do help me in that, and this one in particular, because it's easy for us to get caught up into asking God for things and just our own needs. But this whole psalm is not about asking God for anything, but thanking Him for all that He does for us. Another thing the author made mention of the American founders, how many of them were deists. Basically, what that means is that they do believe in God as an all-powerful God, but this all-powerful God created the world, created the universe, and then kind of just stepped back from it and just kind of let the events unfold and let things go throughout history. As we read through this psalm, you're going to find that's not David's take right here at all. He's worshiping an active God who is intervening throughout the lives of men. And while you're still kind of working on that, hopefully you can write these things while I'm talking. I know that's distracting to some, and it probably would be to me as well. But, what are some instances in the Bible and throughout history that God has actively intervened? You can name probably several just right off the top of your head where God has intervened in the events of men and not simply just let things go. What's that? Noah's Day. That was a pretty direct intervention right there into the lives of men. What else? Josh? He did. He took care of them. They would not have made it very long in the wilderness without God. And that would be, the nation would probably not exist today. Very direct intervention throughout.
Before that, he helped them getting away from the pursuit of the Egyptian army by spreading the water.
Mm-hmm. You see the miraculous events, and then prior to that, the plagues. You see direct intervention from God influencing the events of men.
The walls of Jericho.
Walls of Jericho, very good. It's kind of the sending of His Son, Jesus. That had a pretty big impact into the events of the world. So you see that this idea that God just set the events in motion and then stepped away completely contradicts what we read in the Bible. And
How far do you want to go with this intervention?
we could go on for a while, but Leah, you're right. Let's move forward a little bit. I think our time will get away from us, and hopefully I have stalled long enough for you to document or to jot down a few themes as we go through this psalm. But you see a very active God, and to read this psalm, and it really makes you respect and honor God and all He's done for you.
Eric,
Yes, sir.
I wasn't trying to beat you on with the lesson. I was just wanting to know how far.
Yeah.
How many you wanted us to tell you?
No, but we could literally go for the rest of the class period easily, rattling off things that God has done for us throughout history. So let's begin. And again, this is going to be very interactive. I did not prepare a lot of lessons. I've actually went through my handout here. Normally I'm a front and back full. So I want you to speak up and kind of respond and as we go through this. But let's look at verse 6. And it picks up in verse 6. There's really good information in the first 6 verses. I'm not sure why we started in 6, but for the sake of time, that's where we'll start today. The Lord executes righteousness and justice for all who are oppressed. What does that bring into mind, I guess? Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Very good. All right, in 7, and you're going to see that theme kind of come in a few different times throughout this. In 7, he made known His ways to Moses, His acts to the children of Israel. So God made His ways known to Moses, and you see the author David. What he's doing is he's bringing back some of that history, some of that intervention of God's love. He made His acts known to Moses, to children of Israel. We've named several of those right there. This, again, not a God who just stood back. He directly intervened in these people's lives.
He showed them that if they were doubters, that He would take care of them. In other words, He would get rid of them if they doubted Him. Just like the 10 spies that came back and convinced the people not to take the land, which was the reason they had to wander 40 years, so that those 20 years old and older would die before they could see the promised land. That was because of their doubt.
And you'll see this phrase throughout. I underlined it a few different times, is who fear Him. So you see that statement, that idea that you need to respect God, but with that respect there's so much praise and there's so much goodness in it. So let's go to verse 8. The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in mercy. Beautiful phrase, right? I made mention that just really the word that come into my mind was kind. That's kind, that He is slow to anger. And that's good for us, right?
That reminded me of the verse in the New Testament that's humble and not like the Pharisee boasting on the corner. He said, "For the
That's actually mentioned in some of the author's comments here. He brings that thought out. Edward did a wonderful job on a lesson on anger. If God's anger was like our own anger, we would be in trouble, right? Some of those points he made about righteous anger, but about stubborn anger. What if God had stubborn anger? Or, look through my notes here, that first one that he mentioned. What if God had sudden anger? It would be bad on us, wouldn't it? So God is so great, and then even in his anger, it's good for us. All right, verse 9. He will not always strive with us, nor will he keep his anger forever. Justice. You know, I have justice, I think, in here somewhere too. And that's a good one for that. That's something we can always rest easy on, that just. You don't have to worry about God being impartial or unfair. He's going to be a just God. And for that, I put the note of forgiving. That on anyone. Anything else on 9? Very good point. All right, verse 10. He has not dealt with us according to our sins, nor punished us according to our iniquities. That's a good word or two for that one. I've got one on that. Anybody have anything?
That reminds me of the passage written in the New Testament about after we've done all that God has told us to do, we are still unfaulty.
That's very good, Don. That sums that verse up pretty good right there. Mercy. That's good. The word I had was grace. I thought that was a really good passage on God's grace towards us, and mercy is right there. And even our best, we still fall short. And it's good that God doesn't deal with us that way. He understands us. He understands that. All right, verse 11. For as the heavens are high above the earth, so great is his mercy toward those who fear him. And I went ahead and I tacked in verse 12 to that one. So let me read verse 12 as well with that. As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. You see God using an illustration here. First verse in 11, he's using an illustration of kind of like space. He's going high. And then in verse 12, he's going this way. So David's using very specific, I guess, geography and space illustrations here to explain God's love towards us.
That's like we forgive people, because it's hard for us humans to forgive. God forgives us. He forgives us and forgives us.
That illustration right there shows how much, and I've always thought this is one of the more beautiful passages in the Bible to show that very same point of God completely wipes it away. It's gone. And how great is that? If we had that ability, I think our lives would be a lot happier generally. But as humans, we have a harder time with that and sometimes hold on to things. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I really like that. Jackie, did you say something? I think that's a concept that a lot of times we get confused in the world today of that we can fear God, but that's a respectful fear, and it's as important as anything that God mentions in the Bible, and that can control and influence the behaviors that we have. And I think that's not a popular thought in today's world, of that there is a God who is someone that we should fear, and it can be vengeful. how did that work out for the children of Israel? Many times you saw them come just completely turn away from God and not worry about His wrath at all after they had been punished time and time and time again, quite harshly. But they would turn away, and I think sometimes we have that tendency as well. Let's look at verse 13. I really like this one as well. As a father pities his children, so the Lord pities those who fear Him. So we have that concept of fear again, but we've changed the illustration here. We've changed the illustration. I just put parenting. Parents should be able to understand that point that the author is making there. As a father pities his children. What does that mean? That's really good. Understanding, I guess, really. That shows how much God understands us and our plight, and that He understands the struggles that we go through. As a small child, and as a father, you look through that child and you see that some of the things that they're going through and some of the things you understand, they don't always know right from wrong. They don't always know what they're doing. But as a father, you can see that. And as God, our Father, He sees that in us too. He sees us struggle, and He understands that sometimes the mistakes are going to be made. Sometimes we get a little confused from time to time. He understands that. Compassion. Very, very good. What else on that one? Like I said, that was a wonderful verse. And I think 14 kind of draws that out a little further. If you look at it. For He knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. I don't think in any way that's an insult. W.A.? You see it coming time and time again. There is what David's doing. He's praising God in all His greatness, but he is drawing that concept of the roles. God's role and our role. And the respect is there. So I really like what you said, W.A., right there. Again, not an insult that we are dust, but that's the difference between us. That's the difference between Him and us. He is so great, and He is so worthy of our praise. And sometimes we have a tendency to build ourselves up that we are great, we're all-knowing, we're so smart, we know better than God knows. But that'll never be the case, never be the situation. All right, let's look at 15 and 16. Let's link those up. As for man, his days are like grass. As the flower of the field, so he flourishes. For the wind passes over it, and it is gone, and its place remembers it no more. You see, as the parenting illustration, as this one is kind of drawing on that same principle. That our role in this is not God's role. So I put this is a good illustration of God's love, and they're using nature for this one. Let's look at 17. But the mercy of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear Him. We've got the concept of fear again. His mercy is everlasting to everlasting. I put the word eternal. That was my word. That really is going to, if you look at 18, again, you can see these verses saying the same thing in different ways to build upon the same principles. So if you look at 18 from that verse, and that idea is, to such as keep His covenant, and to those who remember His commandments to do them. To such that keep His covenant, and to those who remember His commandments to do them. My word was obedience. It's important that we are obedient to God. Does someone have anything else?
there was a lot of things the same as they did in the Old Testament, and that we are still to fear Him, ask for mercy from Him, that way humbling ourselves, and do His commandments. That part has not changed. And those who say that things haven't changed, that they won't obey the gospel, don't see what they should be doing in keeping His commandments.
There's great beauty in the old law and the new law, and the connectivity between the two. And as Don pointed out, obedience and mercy and those same principles are interchangeable between the two. All right, let's look at 19. The Lord has established His throne in heaven, and His kingdom rules over all. Anybody have anything good for this one? Powerful. His throne is in heaven, and His kingdom rules over all. I would say that's pretty powerful. Word I had was majesty, because it's using that kingdom illustration here of how God as the king and everything else as His kingdom. And He rules over all. And kind of pulls from that again in verse 20. You see expanding upon that in 20 and 21, really. Bless the Lord, you His angels, who excel in strength, who do His word, heeding the voice of His word. The point for angels right here, bless the Lord, you His angels, who excel in strength. So even the angels who are greater than we are, they worship God. You know, sometimes on earth, we look at all these very important people, very intelligent, smart people, and we want to think what they think. They've got these great ideas, and you see people sometimes want to follow those ideas. And if it's that person thinks it must be true. If angels even worship God, who are greater than men, then we should worship God.
This is where it says, even the voice of His word. I know you talk to people, probably everybody in here has talked to people about the salvation and the gospel. And they'll say, I don't care what that says, I know what I'm feeling in my heart. This tells us we need to keep His word.
We have to listen to God. We have to listen to Jesus. Have to listen to His word. In 21, bless the Lord, all you His host. You ministers of His who do His pleasure. Author thought maybe host. And so I think of host when I first read that. I thought, well, that's us. The author made a little different possibility of that the host could be some of those heavenly hosts. Sun, moon, stars, even those that God created speak to Him and worship Him. And then let's kind of wrap it up with verse 22 right here. Bless the Lord, all His works, in all places of His dominion. Bless the Lord, O my soul. You see that God is always deserving of our praise. No matter what situation we find ourselves in, God is great, and we should spend our time praising Him. So as we kind of close the lesson, think about your prayer life. To me, this made me reflect on it a little differently, and that we should be giving God more praise. I know in my situation it should praise God for all the great things He's done, from the history of man, the great things that He's done, to His great honor in the creation, and just His majesty. We should praise Him for His love as a Father who looks down on us and cares so much for us. All right. Thank you for your attention.